Good evening, and welcome to the Anaheim Planning Commission meeting of February 10th, 2025. Boy, that is loud. My name is Christopher Walker, chairperson of the Anaheim Planning Commission. As a reminder, the Planning Commission meetings are broadcast on all our channels, including the web, Anaheim TV Channel 3. The first order of the business is to salute our flag. Commissioner Lieberman will lead us in the flag salute.
Seeing that next week we have President's Day, I'd like to dedicate tonight's salute in honor of that. So, ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Michelle. Next, I will ask the Planning Commission Secretary to take a verbal roll call vote of all planning commissioners.
Chair Walker,
Present.
Vice Chair Tran Martin,
Here.
Commissioner Lieberman,
Here,
Commissioner Perez,
Here.
Commissioner Castro,
Here.
Commissioner Abdul Rahman,
Yeah.
Commissioner Kelly.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. If you would please all silence your electronic communication devices so that they don't disrupt the proceedings, we would appreciate that. Today we have one public hearing item on our agenda and a workshop. I would ask everyone who's going to speak on any item to please complete a yellow speaker card and give it to staff if you have not already done so. The cards can be found on the table at the entrance when you fill out the speaker card. Please identify the item you are speaking on and pick the appropriate checkbox at the bottom of the form as either applicant, in favor, in opposition, or neither. In accordance with the Planning Commission procedures and rules of order, speakers will be called forward in this order and then in the order received for each designation. Please keep your remarks as brief as you can. We are influenced more by the content than the length of your presentation. First, we provide an opportunity for any member of the public to speak on items of interest to the public that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the committee. Is there anyone here to speak at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward with the hearings. Prior to the public hearing, I will ask the planning commissioners for any disclosures that they wish to make regarding public hearing items on today's agenda.
the only thing I have to disclose is I looked at the applicant's website.
Anyone else? Thank you. Please note that any action taken by the Planning Commission tonight will be final unless 10 calendar days an appeal is filed with the city clerk. The appeal deadline is February 20th, 2025 at 5 p.m. Appeal forms and information are available at the city clerk webpage. I will now begin the public hearing and ask staff to present item 1. Stacy Tran.
Good evening, Chair Walker and members of the Planning Commission. The item before you tonight is a conditional use permit with a parking variance for an automotive repair and modification business within an existing building. The proposed business, VF Motorsports, specializes in development and installation of high-performance parts for luxury vehicles. The property is designated for industrial uses in the general plan and zoning code. The site, which is shown in yellow, is developed with an 18,000 square foot single-story industrial building with 2 tenant spaces. The project will occupy the space shown in red. Surrounding properties mostly include industrial and commercial uses and a nursery to the west in the city of Buena Park. The proposed use will occupy 1193 North Knollwood Circle, which is currently used by the owner for office and warehouse uses. There will be no increase of square footage with this application. Access to the site will be from an existing driveway on Knollwood Circle with a motorized gate for controlled access. There will be 15 parking spaces to serve the proposed use. These photos are of the exterior tenant space. The interior space would consist of over 10,000 square feet of auto shop and office spaces. 5 auto lifts are proposed for fitting, testing, and adjustment of custom parts on vehicles. All activities will take place inside the building, including the storage of vehicles. A maximum of 8 vehicles would be housed in the facility at any given time. Based on the applicant's letter of operations, the business would operate Monday to Friday from 8 a.m. to 5:30 and closed on weekends. Between 6 to 8 staff would be working at one time. A maximum of 6 customers could be scheduled by appointment only. VF Motorsports does not operate like a typical auto repair business. Their services involve modification and installation of custom car parts rather than intensive auto body repairs. They also conduct research and development, including software development and mechanical testing. While typical auto repair businesses have cars in various stages of repair, their facility would actively work on the cars, which include testing and monitoring for 6 to 12 months. The application includes a variance request to provide fewer parking stalls than required by the zoning code. For automotive repair, the code requires 35 parking spaces, and the project provides 15 spaces. The applicant has provided information showing that the provided spaces will be enough to serve the business and will not negatively impact the surrounding area. Since the business operates by appointment only, parking can be scheduled and managed by the business. Given the unique nature of the business, staff agrees that the provided parking spaces will be sufficient to serve the proposed use. Staff received 1 letter of opposition from a neighbor, which was forwarded to the commissioners. Staff responded to clarify the proposed operations differ from a typical auto repair business. The proposed automotive repair and modification use is compatible with the industrial and commercial uses in the area. Given the unique nature of the business and its appointment-only operation, VF Motorsports will have minimal impacts on traffic and parking. Staff supports the request and recommends approval of the application subject to conditions of approval. This concludes staff's presentation. Staff, the applicant, and owner are available to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions by planning commissioners? Commissioner Perez?
And this is just more the disclosure of the notice for the, does this fall within any of the homes or the 250 feet of Buena Park? Or whatever our reporting distance, I don't know if it's 250 or if it's 500.
Yeah, the buffer, it's a 500-foot buffer that we provide notice for, and it does get about 10 residential properties in Buena Park.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing then and ask that the applicant come forward.
Good evening.
Good evening. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, nothing to add.
Very good. Will the planning commissioner or planning secretary call forward? Thank you. Oh, wait, any questions? Sorry. One question.
For the majority of the customers, do they drive their vehicle to the shop, or do they bring it on on a trailer, or what's typically done with the customer?
Almost all customers have their cars shipped to us.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, now I'll have the planning commission secretary call forward any members of the public. You can sit down, sir. Thank you.
There are no other speakers requesting time.
Very good. I guess I'll close the public hearing. Any discussion? Vote.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second.
No further discussion, then we'll take a vote.
7 yes votes, the motion carries.
Thank you very much. Our next item is a workshop. Thank you, Tracy, or Stacy, sorry.
All right, good evening, Chair Walker. My name is Rafael Cobian, and I'm your city traffic engineer. I've got Corey Wilkerson, our principal transportation planner, here with me tonight. This evening, we're going to be providing you guys a workshop on roundabouts. It was something that the commission asked of us a couple of months ago, and I'm looking over at Commissioner Lieberman. We're going to be starting off with some local examples, reviewing the advantages and disadvantages of roundabouts, because there's definitely both. And ultimately, we're going to be looking at the location that we were tasked at looking at. That was the intersection of Imperial Highway and Santa Ana Canyon Road. So with that, I'll turn it over to Corey.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the Planning Commission. Thank you very much for your time tonight. As Raphael mentioned, my name is Corey Wilkerson. I'm a principal in the traffic engineering group here in Public Works. I'm going to go ahead and start with a local example you guys should be pretty familiar with. This is the circle in orange. You can see that there's a single lane entering at this intersection. There's a large center island. It's approximately 180 feet in diameter. It has a vertical split island that's separated with bollards. You can see them there. It's a yield control intersection, so vehicles entering have to yield. And it does require some additional right-of-way at the corners. You can see this a little bit more clearly in an aerial, where you can see this is the circle in the center there, and then at each of the 4 corners, there was additional right-of-way that was required in order to accommodate the circle at this location. So here's another example. This is a larger roundabout. This one's in the city of Long Beach at Los Coyotes Diagonal and Pacific Coast Highway. Here you can see that there's multiple lanes that are entering, and from this view, you can see 3 lanes entering the roundabout. The center island is considerably larger. This one's about 330 feet in diameter. The vertical split islands, they have medians as well as bollards to separate the vehicles and split the vehicles as they're entering. Again, it also has yield control for the entering vehicles, so vehicles that are pulling in have to yield to vehicles already in the center. And then there is a significant amount of right-of-way that's required for a roundabout of this size. See, again, you can see it better in the aerial. Here you can see the roadway network and all the land uses are actually built around the roundabout there. So this was part of a plan development that's been there for a very long time, but all of the roadway network was built around it to accommodate that large roundabout. So some of the potential benefits and kind of a best case scenario, probably the most important benefit is we do see improved safety at roundabouts, both small and large roundabouts. We see there's fewer conflict points, slower speeds, the safer collisions. They're glancing rather than T-bone collisions. There also can be improved operational efficiencies, less delays, less time of day variations in congestion, and improved air and noise pollution because there's less stopping, idling, accelerating compared to a traditional roundabout or traditional intersection, signalized intersection. But with that, there are also some challenges. Obviously, as you saw with the examples, the spatial requirements are significantly more than a signalized intersection. There's a lot more land that's required. It's a higher cost of construction, both the right-of-way and the physical improvements. Multi-lane roundabouts can also be very difficult for pedestrians and bicyclists to be able to navigate through them, particularly as they get larger. And then there's definitely, and certainly the feedback that I've heard most often is some public acceptance. driver confusion, people not knowing what to do when they approach one, wariness with older drivers, et cetera. So in order to kind of assess a particular location, we look to some reference documents. These ones are put together by the Federal Highway Administration, and they kind of walk you through steps on the initial planning and feasibility analysis for a roundabout. Some of the data points that they're looking for are traffic volumes at the intersection, the proportion of traffic by intersection leg, the percentage of vehicles making left turns, speed limits, the types of vehicles that are going to be on the roadway, and then definitely it points to, it gives you kind of some initial guidance on the spatial requirements, the center roundabout median diameter, and the number of lanes in the roundabout. So you asked us to look at an example intersection, and that example is Santa Ana Canyon Road and Imperial Highway. Here you can see that there are two large roadways. They have 3 lanes in each direction on all 4 legs. And then you can also see that there's definitely some land uses within the area immediately adjacent to the intersection, as well as just outside of this view is this State Route 91 and the interchange at Imperial Highway. And you can see there the Canyon High School is in that southeast corner. So looking at these, looking at the required data points, we went ahead and pulled some of our existing data that we have. There's about a little over 60,000 cars that go through this intersection on daily. You can see that in the southbound Imperial Highway leg, there is significantly more vehicles compared to the other legs as well, coming from the ramps there. Left turn percentages, again, similarly, there's 24, 25%, about a quarter of the movements at the intersection are left turns, and that's typical. But something that's a little bit atypical is that, again, in that southbound to eastbound direction, that left turn represents about 40% of the movement, so it's significantly higher than the other legs. We see mixed speeds depending on which leg of the intersection you're looking at. The speed limits vary. And then due to its proximity to the state route as well as the land uses in the area, we see a mix of vehicles, everything from passenger vehicles to larger trucks. So going back and looking at the guidance and the data that we have available, we can look and see that the size of the circle would be not quite as large as the one in Long Beach, at least initially, about 250 feet in diameter. And then you would need a minimum of 3 lanes to travel around the circle from each of the 4 legs. So you can tell that there's quite a bit of right-of-way impacts that would likely take place here. Some additional things to consider is that the proximity to the freeway ramps just to the north there, we could see delays likely happen coming from those ramps and backing up into the circle, as well as the high percentage of the left turn vehicles could kind of cause the circle to break down, and there would need to be further analysis, micro simulations, and further engineering to determine the final configuration if something like this were to be implemented here. But you can see, at least from the initially, there is going to be a significant amount of impacts. And then finally, you have to consider that the proximity to the school at this location, there's a significant amount of pedestrians that cross at this intersection because of the school, especially during those morning and evening after school hours. When you have a roundabout at this size, a pedestrian that's crossing would need to cross 3 lanes on one direction and then 3 lanes in the other direction without the benefit of any sort of signal. So they'd be expecting the vehicles to yield as they're crossing each of those legs, and so it would be pretty dangerous for pedestrians that are crossing at this location without some additional treatments as well that could also affect the roundabout design. So all that is to say that when you look at everything in the totality at this particular location, it probably would not be feasible to implement a roundabout at an intersection like this. The right-of-way impacts and then the adjacent land uses would not be able to accommodate it. So that completes my, my presentation. At this point, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioner, questions? Mr. Perez?
Do we have right turn percentages?
Yeah, so the right turn percentages were pretty similar to the 25%. So you have about 50% going through, 25% turning left, 25% turning right. But they do vary from, depending on which leg you're looking at. But the ones that impact the intersection the most are those left turns, because that's where you see a lot of weaving, and that can cause some operational challenges with the functionality of that roundabout.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Astro?
I have a comment. First of all, I can see why you guys picked this intersection. We did not. It was your suggestion, because it flat out doesn't work with what's already existing there. I'm just kind of, when I had brought up this topic, I was thinking about it in terms of farther up Santa Ana Canyon, in locations where the cross traffic on Santa Ana Canyon is not anywhere near like Imperial Highway. For example, the entrance and exit to the proposed, I don't know where we're at with approvals wise, of the potential military cemetery. There were a lot of neighbor concerns about traffic having to do with that. There was discussion about signalizing it, and kind of, you know, off the top of my head, what I'm thinking of is, you know, on a street like Santa Ana Canyon, if it comes to a situation where a new signal needs to go in, I'm assuming we are not looking at roundabouts, but we're also, a street like Santa Ana Canyon at that point is only 2 lanes in each direction, as opposed to the 3 lanes we were looking at in your example. And I'm wondering if it's more feasible in that sort of scenario.
Commissioner Lieberman, it would be for a lot of different reasons, right? As Corey mentioned, there's a lot to do with the traffic volumes, right? And a lot of times we're dealing with existing traffic volumes. They've got to be pretty balanced, right, in existing land use. So it's tough to put a square peg into a round hole, although it's opposite on this example, right? So when we have opportunities like the cemetery comes to mind, right, where we've got open land, we've got a little bit more area to play with, right? And we see some of our South County cities do this, right? We see Rancho Mission Viejo is able to do this because they're going through their master planning process and are able to accommodate for this increased land use. However, there are benefits to it. So for the city of Anaheim, it's very hard to be able to do that after the fact, right? But I think an example where it may be feasible is like the cemetery. And I recall I did look at that traffic study, and back when we had proposed residential development, we had a lot more traffic coming in and out of there. With the proposed cemetery, there's not a lot. That's why the signal didn't trigger or anything, but that would be a good example of an opportunity where we would be open to looking to see if that is something that operationally works for us. It's just majority of our city is very urban, right? And has a high amount of traffic going through it and number of vehicles going through it.
Okay, I just want to sit here and feel comfortable that our city's traffic department is looking at this as an option in you know, applicable scenarios. You know, whether or not it's going to work, that's for you guys to figure out. But, you know, I want to be comfortable that you're using this tool out of your toolbox.
And I can tell you, we certainly are. I've been here a decade, and I haven't had an opportunity to toss in too many new traffic signals, right? So in a built-out city, we don't get that opportunity often. But I'll tell you, as professionals, we'd love to entertain that. And to share, it's actually the practice of Caltrans. When they're looking to see if their freeway off-ramps are going to be modified in any way, shape, or form, part of their policy is they've got to look to see if a roundabout would potentially fit in there. Most of the times it's tough because it's already built out, there's freeway pylons and everything going on there. However, it is part of their practice and can absolutely be part of ours as well.
Commissioner, you're done? Okay.
So this is a question that's a little bit unrelated to roundabouts, but on the slide where you had the left turn percentages, there was the variation of speed limits. And I know a couple of months ago, the city council did speed limit adjustments for the flatlands. Is that being looked at? Because that's quite a range from 35 to 45, and conceivably, I mean, I know that those are larger streets, but is that being considered to kind of be a little bit more consistent so the variance isn't so large?
So I'll share. When we were one of the first, if you followed the Voice of OC and the OC Register, we were one of the first cities who went hard at reducing our speed limit citywide. There was new legislation that was enacted, and we took the full benefit and reduced as many speed limits because we recognize that speed and severity of collision injury, there's a direct correlation to it. So what I can share with you here, and there's reasons, right? I look at these speed limits and I can tell you exactly why they're a little bit different. We have certain discretion, right? We have certain opportunities to reduce speed limits, but then the state also ties our hands in a way that they don't let us reduce it arbitrarily, right? Although I would love to have a consistent speed limit along the corridors, there are reasons, and at the end of the day, the speed limits I establish, I have to make sure our law enforcement partners can take that to court, and court is going to defend it. Last thing I want is for our police officer to be pulling somebody over only to have a traffic citation dismissed up in court. So, and just to share with you, like, you know, that 35 mile an hour, right? It sounds like that one's the one that stuck out to you, right? And the reason why, that's southbound Imperial, so that's that tiny segment between the freeway off-ramp and Santa Ana Canyon Road. That's usually pretty backed up with that left turn there. People aren't driving very fast. It's a very small segment. So that's why that one is relatively slow compared to once you get past that, right? Your next signal is at the front of the high school, right? Next to the Raising Cane. So you got a larger stretch to be able to go a little bit faster. And that's why we've got that 45 there. So, you know, there's always reasons behind it, but we did make every attempt to try to make our corridors consistent. Not only does that help out our residents, but also our enforcement is a little easier because there's continuity in through there. But we did have some segments, particularly this is one of them where we're so close to the freeway that it does create these little nuances. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing for comments of the public, and will the Planning Commission Secretary call any members of the public forward?
Mark Herbert. And if I may, Chair, while Mark's coming forward, again, this is a workshop, just so minor correction in the nomenclature. So as a workshop, again, certainly opportunity for public to make comment, but as it's not a public hearing, the commission won't be taking action.
Okay, thank you.
Mark Herbert, AnaheimGrease.com. Roundabouts, I wonder how they impact on fire emergencies. This particular one seems wide enough that it could handle any length of vehicle. But in other situations, in light of the LA fire, I think we should always have it near the top of the list of how this is going to impact during a fire emergency. It crossed my mind, and I think it's important we always keep that at the forefront of our minds. Like, I was looking at the photo of the orange circle, and that appeared kind of normal. I'm sure they've looked into this and have examined it. But going forward, I hope, particularly in the canyon, where it's a high fire risk area, that we keep in mind we have to be prepared for fire evacuations and emergencies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? So I will close the workshop for the public comments for the workshop. Did I do that right? And any additional comments or questions from the Planning Commission? Go ahead.
I'm assuming, just to follow back that up with the public comment, that's why there's the diameter standards, I'm assuming, in regards to the island?
There's diameter standards as well. Depending on the size, if it gets a little bit smaller, we have mountable surfaces in the middle, right, to where a truck can go through. And to Mr. Herbert's point as well, that's part of the disadvantages, right? Part of our advantages with a traffic signal is that we implement emergency vehicle preemption, right? It detects our fire department coming in with lights and sirens. It locks down that intersection, goes all red, and it provides them an opportunity to come through. So that would be one of the potential disadvantages with a roundabout, that we lose that opportunity to providing them that emergency vehicle preemption.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll close the workshop then. Thank you very much. I appreciate it, gentlemen. The next item on our agenda is the Underground Conversion Subcommittee appointment. The purpose of the Underground Conversion Program, which is administered by the Public Utilities Department, is to convert electrical and communication lines from overhead to underground for both reliability and aesthetic purposes. The subcommittee meets quarterly and is comprised of 5 members, 2 from the Planning Commission and 3 from the Public Utilities Board. There is currently 1 vacancy to fill from the Planning Commission. Do we have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Abdul Rahman, if he is open to it.
Oh, I was going to nominate the same person. As I understand, he's got background in this area.
Commissioner Press? Okay. We need a roll call, I guess, to close the nominations?
You know, we might as well just follow the process that we use to the chair and the vice chair. So I'd make a motion to close the nominations, and then once that passes, take a formal vote to nominate Commissioner
I
Abey.
move to close the nomination.
Second.
Okay, now a roll call.
Seven yes votes, the motion carries.
And then we don't need a motion to vote, we just take the vote. Okay.
Do I vote?
Seven yes votes, the motion carries.
Any commission updates?
I've got a few this evening. On February 24th, our next Planning Commission meeting, we do not have any public hearing items, but we do have a workshop on the housing element of the general plan. So another workshop coming on the 24th. Following that, on the March 10th meeting, then you will make a decision on the housing element. That will be before you. And on March 24th, we have the general plan update and program EIR. That will be before you as well. I'm not certain on the exact date yet, but it's looking like March 25th, and we received an appeal for the Mills Act windows decision to City Council, and at this point in time, it looks like it'll be going on March 25th. And that's it for my updates.
Any commissioners with updates? I guess we're adjourned. Thank you very much.